Our guest for the first episode is Hannah, a former Swedish handball player who's been in the industry for 15 years. Within this particular episode, we talk about really hard-hitting topics that include sexism, grooming, and the lack thereof female presence in really important roles such as coaches, managers, referees, and more. Here is a small taste of what's coming in the episode.
Handball has been the one sport in Sweden where females really have been fighting for justice, and there was a big blow up during Me Too because one famous handball player in Sweden, she spoke out about grooming basically towards young girls. A normal thing at tournaments was that when the girls was playing, and there is always catcalls like, "Oh, she's such a nice," and nobody was saying shit except once when there was a female judge.
Sorry, I can't even wrap my head around it.
The problem lays within the fact that the different clubs are not educating their players or their trainers or coaches.
If you want to catch the full episode, be sure to check out Size YouTube, Spotify, and any other streaming services. Welcome to the Inclusion is What Matters podcast. Within this podcast, we sit down with athletes and discuss the current landscape of their sport. We listen to their journey, their story, ambitions, and most importantly, what matters to them. Our guest for the first episode is Hannah, a former Swedish handball player who's been in the industry for 15 years. Within this particular episode, we talk about really hard-hitting topics that include sexism, grooming, and the lack thereof female presence in really important roles such as coaches, managers, referees, and more. So to just dive right into the interview.
Oh, go ahead, girl.
I was just going to ask you to explain your sport, kind of give like a short summary of your aspirations and stuff like that.
Oh God, which one do you want me to go with?
Everything.
I'm such a restless soul. I think that's the core of it.
Mhm.
You know, like so obviously handball is a very, very European sport. Not very known in England.
Yeah, I don't know what handball is.
No, so handball is basically, if you're thinking about, ice hockey, right? Think about that on land. So like all type of like you tackling people, like wrestling, but you have a ball in your hands. And you use glue in your hands.
Vibes, like Harry Potter Quidditch, but like
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's basically what it is. But you're like minus, what do you call that?
the broomstick. Is that what it's called?
I'm sorry, I have only watched 2 Harry Potter movies.
That's right, bro. I don't even know. I think it's literally just a broomstick.
Well, it's not a ladder and it's not a stick, so anyway, so think about that basically, and with like a really, really hard ball who's like this big. Yeah, the size of your hand, like a little bit bigger. And then you have you use glue when you turn 10. Get like shoot harder and like yeah, it's a very it's a contact sport.
Yeah, it's very intense. It sounds very intense.
Mm-hmm. And you run all the time, and it's really hard training. But I got into it basically, I think we were doing so I was going into a class when I was 6 years old, because we have different grade school systems, obviously. So we go from kindergarten to school when we were 6 instead of 5. And in that group of people, I think we were like 10 really short, really tiny blonde girls. And all of us, like, it's like, I swear I hate it nowadays, but we love to play around, like be really active. And then all of our parents got along really well, and they were like, let's just put them in some type of sport. And so 3 people started with handball, and then week after week more people from the same class into the trainings and to the sessions, and then we just ended up playing handball for 12 years, like 12-14 years together. So the same people, I was spending more time with these girls like during the day and in the evening than my own parents.
So like your family was your second family, and then your handball team was
your exactly, because handball, like any sport, it gradually gets really intense, and really it intensifies the commitment level, obviously, of it. Suddenly from your like 9, it's just fun. Then you go up to, so it's basically a field of like 25 meters, and then suddenly you go up to a field that is 50 meters, and it's quite a change of heart. And you always change the times of the game, like of the games. So you go from like 20 minutes in total of a game to 40 minutes when you're 10, and then it gradually gets more and more. I remember from the age, like when we turned 12, we started with like heavy lifting and like
Lifting.
like military session, like running, like intervals. It was harsh, like really harsh.
That literally sounds like the army.
Yeah, but it was a mini army, I would say. But it taught us so much discipline, and it kept us away from drugs, alcohol, anything that is called bad influence, because if we did any of that, we were kicked out of the team.
Yeah.
I think I drank like my first drop of alcohol when I was 17 ish.
It kind of allows you to grow up in a sense, in a
Yeah,
environment.
and yeah, exactly. And it was definitely a safe space for me, because like my entire my life at home has, like, privately, has always been surrounded by fights and divorces and, like, all this jazz going on. So for me, handball was definitely the place where I could, like, get out all my anger. you know yeah, and also have, because our coaches were obviously people we trusted so much, and it was so nice to have other adults around you that was not your parents.
Yeah.
And they always made sure that if something wasn't right up here, they always took us in afterwards, and they were like, how are you okay? Why are you acting really, because obviously there are rules as well in handball, so if you do something aggressive, they know what's going on.
Oh, she's having a bad week.
Exactly. And or like, yeah, okay, she's on her period, or but that's a bit sexist, but you know what I mean, just what's going on at home. But definitely that was my anchor back in the days. It was also like really tough when, because this blonde gang no, but
Was that your name? Was that your street name?
Oh yeah, the blondies. Like everyone, because we went to the same school for 10 years and we played handball for 10 years.
Yeah.
So everyone knew, but it was a very toxic environment as well when we grew up. It was a lot of pressure. Everyone, good grades was like, if you didn't have good grades, you were like out of it.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit toxic spending so much time with the same people.
I get you.
And that's what I would say nowadays, even if I look back on it, how I felt then, it was much more a safe haven. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bit.
Because when you start hanging out with people like a lot, especially like the way you've just explained it, school, wake up, you eat together, you go play,
Exactly.
20 hours a day you're with these people. I feel like you don't get to develop separately, and then you kind of start to into like one person. Would you get you? Because there's no like, there's no me and then the team. It's just the team.
Exactly. And you're so dependent on what the team thinks that you don't create or value your own opinions.
Yeah.
I remember as well, because I stopped playing handball when I started my A levels.
Yeah.
When I was 17. No, 16. So in Sweden, we finish high school when we're 15.
Yeah.
And then we go to college or A levels for 3 years, which is called gymnasium. And I quit playing handball 1 year into A levels, which is the best decision I've ever made, because in this group of people, they were both homophobic and a bit racist. And to me, that was against, I know, and to me, that was like against everything I ever believed in.
Because it's also you keep your company around.
But the point, but the point for me was that in school, my best friends, all of my best friends in school, like that I worked best with, was guys, and no one was Swedish. True. So that didn't resonate with me. It just didn't resonate with me. So when I started this at this art school, like the art school with A levels and shit, it was a new world, to me. It was like, suddenly I met the first trans person I've ever met, and suddenly I was surrounded by people who didn't give a shit who I slept with, but they gave a shit about my commitment to the arts.
Yeah.
And because, so I had to choose when I was 14 if I wanted to play handball or do musical theater and dancing. So I choose handball, but then again, walked back into a dance studio when I was 16, and I was like, I'm never letting go of this again. Oh yeah, no, honestly, that was my feeling. It was just a comedic little moment. But I would say that also, like, the arts are so important in my life. But at the same time, without the handball, I would never go out and run 4 times a week as I do now. I would never push myself mentally as I know, because I know I can achieve all these things. I know that if I'm running up a hill, I can do more than 11 times it's all about like my mentality. And I also love like playing like basketball, football, anything involved with like a ball sport.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's I don't know if it gave me a lot, but at the same time, I see the negatives of
Yeah.
it
I
as
think
well.
it's good that you're able to see these points and realize, like, right, okay, it's time for me to end it. Because there's a lot of times where you know about people that, because obviously it's comfortable, that's all they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're able to realize, oh, okay, this sport has given me a lot of good things, but I need to grow. I'm
Exactly.
starting to be more of a hinder than something I look forward to.
Exactly. And also like I think it's just hard to explain it because a lot of people, you know, they say when you tell them, yeah, I do performing arts,
Mhm.
a lot of them go, oh, okay, but how come you're so interested in fitness? And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I can do both things,
true.
you know? But at the same time, without the arts, I would still be a spoiled white brat, not knowing shit.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
No, no,
not
I
knowing
understand.
shit. Yeah, but not knowing shit about my environment. I would never have educated myself within different ideologies or within the history of colonialism or the history of the arts. You
Mhm.
know, how oppressed women and people of color have been. Especially in my handball team, we had one girl who was Indian, and her family was very, very religious and very conservative, and like not in a sexist way, but you know, she was dating a Muslim guy,
Mhm.
and that was, oof, it was so much like that was scandalous for her family.
Oh.
And I remember because we she went to the same class as me from year from we were 12 until 15.
Mhm.
And I was always like, if you ever need to talk to someone, you can talk to me. She was like, but you would never understand. And I was like, of course I will. And nowadays, now when I look back, I understand exactly what she's saying.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a family that's atheist.
Mhm.
They're workaholics. They're privileged white ass bitch, not knowing how to treat other people or to behave or not knowing when they're stepping on someone's toes.
Mhm.
My mom is the most cool person on earth, but my dad, no. And when now, and her family has now accepted her boyfriend who's Muslim, and like they're coming out, like they're getting over all of that. And but I remember I've never connected with Swedish people, like
Mhm.
never. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I think it's more because I've always been I've always had a temper, you
Mhm.
know. I've always been really blunt, really honest. I'm telling what I'm saying, like what I feel.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle that, that's the door, you
The
know,
door.
literally. And that's not Swedish culture.
Oh.
So most of my best friends are Kurdish or Lebanese back
Mhm.
in Sweden. So for me, it's always been I grew up in a different environment because I was barely home, like barely, and my parents were barely home as well. So my family was my friend's family, and you know, coming home to a Lebanese home
Yeah.
where they literally say Habibti, they call you darling the first time they see you, they kiss you on the cheeks, they hug you, they give you food, everyone talks to you, even if you don't understand the language,
Yeah.
and they're so welcoming. And I haven't even, and you know, for me, I haven't even heard my father say I love you for 10 years. Like that's such a like
Yeah.
culture clash.
You're like,
And yeah, so like it's I think handball brought me to a realization of what I want to take with me personally from it,
Mhm.
but also I don't want to have that outlook
Yeah.
on my surroundings
Mhm.
or the people around me based on what the communal opinion was of this gang, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I get you. That's a really good way to kind of show how handball has intertwined in your journey of becoming who you are, because then you realize that the community within handball is not something, well, that community within handball is not something that you wanted to be. And then that led you to flourish because you knew what you didn't want to be. So that
Yeah.
room to like find the best.
It's just so hard for people to just be open, or especially in that gang. It was just like they're obviously really lovely people today, you know. They've grown as well. It
Mhm.
was 10 years ago. We all, you know, we all make mistakes and we all learn a lot of shit. But there is a reason wait, they were still in Sweden, really uncontent with their lives. And I just took my shit and moved.
No.
So like that. No, but it's just I'm not scared of a new environment. I'm not scared of new people, but I don't like that person I was, because I never experienced that type of like discrimination in ballet or in the arts.
That goes on nicely. A good segue to my next question.
Really?
Yeah.
Go ahead, girl.
My next question was, would you say your current field is seen more male oriented? Would you say handball was stereotypically seen as a more male sport? Because of how you described it, it seems really intense. So to me, my interpretation would be like, oh, when you're a girl saying, oh yeah, I do handball, loads of people would be like, it must be like really easy or something like that, The stereotypical reaction to a girl doing a tough sport.
Good
You saying
question.
did that happen a lot?
Oh my god, I swear to you, the assumptions made, the sexist assumptions made are massive. Because, for example, me myself, I really love watching handball on TV, It doesn't matter if it's men playing or women. Obviously when it's men, it goes a bit faster because, they're men. And physically, they are faster and stronger. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's always like when you present yourself in Sweden and they go, oh yeah, but you're a girl, right? And I'm going, no, I played handball for this many years. And they're like, oh, so you can beat me up? It's more like it's a big girls complex. But the point is that handball has been the one sport in Sweden where females really have been fighting for justice. And like there was a big blow up during Me Too.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of male coaches has been, what do you call it, not predators, they've been
Grooming?
sexually grooming basically towards young girls. And we had one coach like that when we were 13, 14, and no, even 16, and he was 21, so that was like way too close in age as well.
Yeah.
But it was such a huge blow up during Me Too because one famous handball player in Sweden, she spoke out about it, and also about the salaries between the female and male players.
Yeah.
And that is massive still today. The difference is massive.
I feel like that's so sad because it's so common nowadays. The fact that it's common for in girl sports, you always hear about the coach being, first of all, being a man, which is then like, why are they not any female coaches? But second of all, they really abuse that position of authority with young girls. And then because they're young girls, they're not really, I've seen so many young girls who aren't outspoken. They won't say, hey, stop what you're doing, I don't like it. They kind of have to, because of that figure of authority, they kind of have to take it in. And it really hurts my heart because I'm like, these people start off young, they start off young in the sport if they want to do it professionally. And they haven't even had a chance to grow yet, and things like this is still happening to them.
And also it kind of normalizes the behavior in their head. They're like, oh, this is normal behavior from a coach. And that kind of fucked up, like, because obviously when you are in that age, when you're between 13 and 16 especially, you grow both physically or you don't, or you realize what your sexuality is, what way you're floating, and as little as that type of attention, that moment of attention from a coach can give you some type of satisfaction. So instead of saying, hey, no, this is wrong, they kind of consume it. And but I've always heard that. But within the sport itself, if you go to, for example, if there is like a tournament, and there are both girls teams and boys teams, like back when I was like everything from almost like 11 to 16, there was always like the boys was always, they were acting like they had authority in the situations. They were very, very authentic about the fact that they were bigger, that they were faster, that they were always gonna beat us, and that to me is like stupid. No, like it's just horrendous. And also a normal thing at tournaments was that when the girls was playing and the boys was watching, everyone is watching the game obviously, and it could be up to 500 people watching, and there is always like catcalls and nicknames, like nicknames callings, like, oh, she has such a nice ass, or like, you go skinny, or you go booby. Like, it's always, yeah, like, and nobody was saying shit except once when there was a female judge.
Wow.
And yeah, and she was like, if you don't stop that, I'm gonna have to stop the game
The
and
fact
ask.
that the male, it only sorry, I can't even wrap my head around it. The fact that in a
I'm telling
sport
you.
you're catcalling these people playing a sport, it's a competition, they're playing a sport and you're catcalling these girls.
Exactly.
No one has said anything. It only takes a female, what was it, a female coach, what was it that you said?
Yeah.
A
No,
female,
a female. I don't know what you call it. Referee. That's the name.
it
Yeah, a
takes
female.
a referee to be like, stop that. But all the older male referees didn't think that, these are young girls, we shouldn't be catcalling them while they're in the middle of a
Exactly.
competition.
They don't see a problem with it, and that's what I hated with the sport.
Yeah.
It was such a sexed out view on it, because our coach, I've had Norwegian coaches from the age, yeah, for 8 years, no,
Yeah.
10, even 10. And they've been really, really good, really, really good. So the guy who was sexually offending us a tad bit, like grooming, he was only a temporary coach when our other coach had a baby.
Mhm.
And but the other two they were really good, and they always organized so we had the same training sessions as the male team that was the same age as us, because and they mixed up the teams to make sure that there was, that it's not about how strong you are or how fast you are, it's about your mentality and your technique.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
But obviously when you're a young teenager, you see it more as like a field of interaction.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was probably I was probably like flirting with at least 10. I did not flirt, but back in the days. But also like with ballet or dancing or arts in general, it's like that's such a female thing to do.
Yeah. No, it needs to be inclusive for everyone.
Exactly.
Like,
Because
it's for everyone.
it's not about what I
Why?
have between my legs.
Yeah, it's literally, it doesn't matter about the gender or the sex that anyone identifies as.
Exactly.
That's
It's
literally the last thing that should cross anyone's mind. And I think it's changing at the moment. Like, in the world, it is changing. But before,
yeah.
it's just like, oh, she's a female athlete. You know what I mean? She's not just an athlete. She has to be a female athlete, because they have
Yeah,
to
and it's just
specify that she's a female.
exactly. And to me that's really unimportant. Like, if you're a he, a she, or a they, I mean, if you treat me well, I'll treat you well as well.
Yeah.
You know? If
Yeah.
you treat my friends like shit,
Mm-hmm.
I will treat you like shit. And no, but like, I don't take. It's not that I'm not clumsy in social situations. No, but it's just very. It just really saddens me.
Touching on the points that we raised about all these, like, what happens behind the scenes with like the coaches and stuff, and also there's a major connection between the lack of female coaches and referees and stuff and what happens. What advice would you give to younger people / your younger self that are going into the sport, knowing what you know and like all the experiences that you've gone through? What advice would you give them to handle this kind of sexism or discrimination or anything?
Definitely talk to your parents if you have that opportunity, or
Mhm.
to an adult that you trust, and also have an adult that is with you before you enter or sign a contract with a team, to make sure that this adult person who is a grown up, they probably have a functioning brain and can feel social vibes, and just sense what type of person the coach is.
Yeah.
Definitely that. Just talk, communicate with someone you trust, and also pinpoint what you want from a coach.
Yeah.
That this person who is going with you knows exactly what you're pinpointing. But also just speak up. Like, I know speaking up is really hard about it, but and also just stand your ground.
Yeah.
Like, if someone is doing something, scream. Like, say that. What the fuck did you just do?
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if they kick you out of the field or if they say you're not allowed to come back into this training hall again. That doesn't matter because you just have to like,
Yes, for your
and
own well-being.
yeah, but also I think it's more of a systematical problem, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
And I think the problem lays within the fact that the different clubs are not educating their players or their trainers or coaches because they literally just take in someone who's been playing for 20 years
Mhm.
and doesn't have anything to do in the evenings.
Yeah.
And their coach education is what, 3 days?
Huh?
Yeah. So
Coach.
no, I know.
Like
So
that doesn't sit right with me that you're spending a lot of time with these younger children and stuff like that. And
yeah,
obviously I would think you need to learn a bit more about how to handle children and like kind of the
yeah,
same education a teacher would go through if they want to do primary school or secondary school, all of that.
exactly.
And that takes a long time, not 3 days.
Exactly. But then again, they're not getting paid. Usually it's like volunteering.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the club is doing the funding.
Mhm.
And Sweden, I mean, we do have a great infrastructure, both financially and politically.
Mhm.
But the systematic problem lays within the fact that the coaches are not getting that education on gender and sexism and discrimination,
Yeah.
and how to behave with a specific age group.
Mhm.
And because if they had that type of education, they could also have informative meetings with their players, you
Yeah.
know?
I was just gonna say, I feel like that really needs to be for both boys and girls, or like however they
Yeah, yeah,
clubs. But that really needs to be a dominant factor. I feel like of educating coaches, especially when it comes to girl teams, because
yeah.
those years our bodies are changing, and those are really pivotal years. Realize to not push your female athletes to the point where like they might lose their period because that might affect them in the future, nutrition and stuff like that. And that's why I feel like
I
there needs to be more inclusivity with female coaches, nutritionists, whatever
I know.
sport,
And
because they understand it, but because they've been through it, but they're able to say, okay, these girls are 13, 14, this is what's happening around their body this time and stuff like that. So for me to ask them to be constantly doing this and or whatever, the training certain ways, it is not good for them in the long run. That might literally affect something really important in their body.
exactly. And it's also the emotional support in it as well. I'm not saying that they were bad at it because but at the same time they're not therapists.
Yeah.
So I get that. Especially when you're talking about it as in fact that the only education we got, like education we had, like an educational session, was when we had like a team night at one of the girls' houses, and we were probably like 11, 12, I think.
Yeah.
And I hadn't gotten my period yet. And our female coach, she was just she was actually pregnant. So she was like gonna go on maternity leave. But she had like a little, like she was describing, like, yeah, now you're getting your period. But there's no worries in training. You can train when you have your period and when you're in period pain. And if you're training, it's just gonna get better with your period pains because you won't have period pain if you're training. For me, when I got my period, like until I was 20, I was on bed rest twice a month, like at least 2 days or 3 days a month.
Yeah.
Like puking, cramping. I couldn't eat, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't sleep. And to hear that, you kind of minimize the
Pain.
minority or majority of people who have these symptoms.
Because they're
And
like,
people,
don't worry about it, just
yeah,
push it to the side.
exactly. And especially now when I know afterwards, I know at least 3 of those people I played with who has endometriosis.
Yeah.
That was not even talked about. I didn't even know what endometriosis was. Even in school, they didn't, like the sexual science or health education did not even include that. Like and that it's so frustrating and sad to me because it just up so much of like just of your view of yourself, just the picture you paint about yourself.
Yeah.
And you think something's wrong with you, or you're just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I'll go to the training, I'll go to the coaching session, even if I'm in huge pain, like even if I have massive cramps. They don't give a yeah, but the point was, if you didn't show up to the majority of the trainings that week, when we were training as the most, we had days, like 4 evenings a week that we were training, and then we had 2 games on the weekends. And if you didn't show up to 3 of them, you would only play 1 game, like the most. So it was some type of competitive system as well.
Obviously, you wanted to play. That's the whole point of being in this team. But
Exactly.
yeah, that really is to the point of where like it really teaches these people at a young age that their pain literally doesn't mean anything. And I've also heard from some of my friends or like friends often I've heard this once from a coach. Often it would be like, oh, but the boys this, and I'm like, but the boys aren't going through a period once a month, and if it's painful, you need to let someone know. It can't like that. I really don't understand. It's like, but boys don't have to go through this. I'm like, well, I'm bleeding for like
Exactly.
7 weeks straight. Boys don't have to go through that. And you need to have that level of understanding. And as you said, education, that when dealing with females, dealing with women and young girls.
So much.
Yeah.
Like it's not fair on anyone that has a period. I don't care really what gender you are. Don't minimize or compromise the pain that females are going through. And also, I remember we had, I think it was one girl, I'm not sure, and I think she was trans.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was in the midst of her transition to, okay, it's fucked up because she transitioned to being a male and then she transitioned back. So she was going through a lot, obviously, with having a period. Mm-hmm. And she was not comfortable being a woman at all, like being portrayed and treated as a woman when she felt like a man. And I remember how our coaches, like, they didn't even take into consideration that she took hormones, that she had shots every month. It was like, now when I think about it, it makes me tear up. Yeah. Because it's so horrendous, like horrendous how discriminating it is. Yeah. Like, it's under the surface. It's like the Cold War, you know? No one is saying anything, but it's going on.
No, that's really, I think nowadays I do see a change. I do see a change about, like, you see more stories and articles on social media and stuff like that. And also, I think nowadays women are much more comfortable with saying what's happening to them. I think that's with the whole Me Too thing. But there definitely needs to be a drastic change about how people handle women's feelings, no matter, like, people's feelings and what they're going through, not for them to put them down.
I just think that there is not enough information and education within sport in general, I'm gonna say, because about how you behave, what the moral and ethics are, and how everyone matters. Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I dream about, because people ask me a lot, like, do you want kids, Yeah. That's like one of the most normal
questions. That's a common question. Girl or woman, are you gonna have kids?
Oh, exactly. And like, when are you gonna have kids? It's not like, do you want to have kids? It is, when are you gonna have kids? But I always answer, because I love kids and I would love to have one on my own. But I always say, yeah, but I want to adopt one or two, and that has nothing to do with me feeling better about myself. It's more about, wait, why should I put something into this world when there are so many creatures who is suffering from parents who left them because they probably couldn't take care of them or anything. And a lot of people go, oh yeah, you're such a great person. I'm like, no, that is not the point of it. Okay? If I don't want to have a kid biologically, that is not your problem. Yeah. So one of my biggest dreams are that there are, okay, how do you explain it? Like the male and female team, and then you have a non-gender team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that can be any gender. Yeah. And that team is playing on a national level, like in any sport. That's like one of my biggest dreams. But then again, I should not be the advocate for that fight. Mm-hmm. It's the same, like, I can talk about it as well. Yeah. And if I ever start a handball team, that will be it. Yeah. But it's the same as saying that I can play a character in The Lion King. I can't. Except probably Timon.
But it's like, you can help and you can...
Oh, yeah. Opinion, absolutely.
Like, absolutely. I get what you mean, but you can't be the one to be like, this is this, and no, this, and we need this. Yeah.
But and it's not about me that being like, oh, I don't want to take that fight. It's more like, hey, I'm not one to talk about it because I don't know what it is to go through a transition. I have zero clue.
Yeah.
I have experienced a lot of different groomings and different sexist scenarios in the sport. And I can encourage someone to leave the fight. Absolutely. That's like me saying, that's like someone saying, Han, I know exactly how it is to have someone like an alcoholic parent. No, you don't,
Yeah.
if they haven't.
Yeah.
You will never understand the pain. You will never, you can probably read about and educate yourself, and support your friend, but you will never know exactly what they're going through. You have no freaking clue.
Like that phrase where you can only sympathize, not empathize. I think that's the phrase. Or I might
Exactly.
be saying
Yeah.
a word, but like if you haven't gone through something similar, the same thing, you can't put where someone
Yeah.
can put themselves in their shoes. That you're looking at the person, you're not.
I just think it's really, really ignorant of the industry, and I think it's the same in sports.
Yeah.
It's just about laziness, and people are just like, that's not my fight to take. It's like, but
Yeah.
who's gonna
The
take it?
unwillingness to learn. We all have to learn, and it's a lot of the time
Yeah.
people always, as you said, if it's not my fight, if it's not happening to me, they don't want people to say anything. But it's like when something happened to you, what will you do if no one stands up for you because you didn't
Exactly.
for everyone else?
Exactly. And that's the same with like Me Too. It's just like, it's not about the fact that you need to have experienced a grooming. You don't have to experience a rape.
Mm-hmm.
Just be a human being.
Yeah.
I
Like
swear, it pisses me off so much, honestly. It
no,
pisses
I
me
get
off. Like, I think you know what's good.
yeah. Like all the stuff that we're talking about, like there's multiple issues. I just wanted to multiple movements and stuff like that, not issues. I wanted to just ask if you had the chance to bring light to a topic slash movement that you feel like is really important or people don't talk about enough. I know we've touched on a few, something personal to you. What topic would
Oh,
it be? And you could
if
do
we're talking,
sports, it doesn't have to do a sport, like something.
no, no, no. If we're bringing it back to when I was like 16,
Mhm.
I would probably say, like, I'm very, very passionate about obviously educating kids, and that a part of their education is mental health and psychological problems. That is a part of biology, the topic biology. But for me, it's definitely about mental illnesses, everything, or just I burn especially for kids who have a parent who's like addicted
Mhm.
to something, because you become codependent, you become co-addicted to them, and it becomes a disease for you as well. So definitely kids who have abusive parents, or like who are using drugs or alcohol, like that's like my first. But also I think there's like, especially now during COVID, I don't know if you know about the semicolon project. So yeah, that was my first tattoo basically.
Mhm.
And it's basically a movement for people who have experienced the loss of someone who committed suicide, or someone who attempted to
Yeah.
commit suicide. And but it's back to mental illnesses, just normalize it and like educate people that disabilities are not always visible. Everyone says that, but it's so important, because I think if you're broken a leg, people treat you differently. If you're pregnant, people stand up. But someone with rheumatism is not visible. Or someone who is, do I know, having a panic attack. Like, just normalize that, because I remember as fast as I said to my mom, going to school, I was like, I can't go to school today. Like, I can't. My head is not in a good place.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, but you're not having a cold. You're not sick." And I
Yeah.
was like, but I am,
I think it's
you
even
know?
worse for like mental sickness rather than
Yeah.
sickness, because physical sickness, there's always feel like, well, to a certain extent, it depends what you have. There's always an end in sight. You can take like medication or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a flu. Whereas
Exactly.
mental sickness, that haze, you can get into such a deep haze that you don't think there's an end in sight, which
Exactly.
really affect you. And yes, you might get through it, but that still kind of lingers throughout your whole life, because that kind of changes
Yeah.
who you are mentally, and also that's a literal chemical imbalance in your brain. You can fix
Exactly.
an egg, but how are you meant to fix a chemical imbalance in your brain?
Exactly. And also, like, it's crazy how we, by the age of 10, know what fever is. We know what a hay fever is. We know what a cold is. We know what lung inflammation is. We know what hypothermia is. We know what lung cancer is, and all these different diagnoses, but we don't know what PTSD is. We don't know what bulimia is yet. We don't know what anorexia is. We don't know what bipolar is. And to me, that's just like, Because I remember when I was 15 and I went to my probably 10th psychiatrist and I was like, I'm just tired of this.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, mm-mm, we're gonna take up all the brick walls, the bricks, and then we're gonna start building so you understand. But to me, that was new territory. I didn't even know what the that was.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm so grateful for it because I understood, okay, my dad's he's addicted. He's an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
The other people around me in the same age, they didn't understand when I tried to explain. They were like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And I was like, "But do you actually know what it means? Chemically? Yeah, like, do you understand that chemically he's addicted
Yeah.
because he has to deal with emotional trauma?" It's just I just think it's back to education.
Yeah.
Like if in my dream world,
Yeah.
obviously I would include so much more how to behave, like social science, like everything about racism,
Mm-hmm.
not being nationalistic in your historical classes, about sexism, all organs, how all different identities, like what do you call it, sexual identities and sexualities, like I just wish everything was much more broad. For me, people was like, yeah, you had ADHD. And I was like, okay. So I came to my doctor when I was 22, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I was diagnosed with this, but not fully diagnosed. And she was like, okay. And then I told her my medical history and, like everything. And she was like, we're going to take you to a neurological doctor. And I was like, okay. Goes there. The first thing she says is, you don't have ADHD. I
Yeah.
was like, what? And she's like, your mental problem started when you were what? 12? I was like, yeah. She was like, ooh, honey, no, 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 no. ADHD is genetic. Oh, you've suffered from chronic depression for 10 years. Mind blowing. I did not have to take medication, but it was suddenly it became a part of my identity. I was like, I had ADHD, that's why
Yeah.
I'm this. And I thought that was the explanation to my behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, okay, like medically, your serotonin level is too low.
Yeah.
Your brain don't know how to create the right amount of serotonin to be happy. And I was like, so now I'm taking antidepressants for
Yeah.
2 years, and I swear, life changing. I've gone around, had like been so anxious, always thought people were gonna leave me. I've always been sad, like really fucking depressed. Other people, they get, for example, I don't know, a new job. They would be like, I was like, yay. I was never genuinely happy. Now I would jump off the roof. I'd be so happy. So it's just not only misdiagnosing, but also not spending enough time and money and funding on the kids in general and make them talk about it. I think we're just really good at putting kids in boxes and then that's it.
I thought what's great about our generation is that constantly we're like, there should be no box. The box should not exist. It should just be an open field.
Yeah. And whatever you want to be, sure. And sure, there needs to be boxes for certain things as political, that needs to be, that's finance, that's a bank,
Yeah.
that's the arts, that's work. That's not me.
Yeah. That's not your
That's not it.
personality.
Exactly. And I also think it's so important to separate integrity and identity.
Yeah.
So many people just mix these shit up, and I'm like, ooh, to me, that's just like with my head because if I say, oh yeah, I'm from Sweden, both of my parents are white, they both have really great jobs, I'm coming from that background, you would probably say, the first thing you would say would be, oh, you're posh. That's your first thought, first assumption. And then I start speaking, and then I start talking about my life, then you would be like, oh, and then you get to know me, you're like, this person doesn't match with the assumption I have.
Yeah.
People don't go into conversations with an open mind, and that's just
Yeah. Where do you think the industry, like handball or like sports industry, sits in? Are they more inclusive now? Do you think there's more areas like where do you think they have improved and stuff like that?
I definitely think that everything got like an upswing
Mhm.
and definitely improved on the theoretical levels and the academic levels of education within handball after the Me Too movement and the entire everything happening around that movement. No, I definitely think that the movement has that on the academical levels an upswing and an improvement after the Me Too movement and everything going on with it. because it highlighted so many different topics, like, and details within the sexism going on, especially in sports. And as I was talking about earlier, this specific spokesperson, famous handball player in Sweden, he was really talking about her, like, the sexual harassment she's experienced with everything from men, old men, young guys, and coaches. You know, everything from catcalling to sexually offending her by, like, grabbing her booty or the boobs, or cat, like, everything going on, or the grooming. And I don't currently know much about it going on in detail, but I do know that because I was talking to one of my best friends in Sweden, and she's been playing as well. She was talking about the coach training is longer now, and they actually go away for a week and keep on having lectures on weekends before they can actually take over a team that is younger than 10 years old. I don't know exactly what is included in this education, if there is a specific topics or departments that they're touching upon, but I want to believe that it is going forward. Yeah, and there is and there has definitely been a financial deflation. The female handball players are earning more now after Me Too. That's thanks to Me Too. Very grateful for that, because you got to start somewhere. But there are so much left to do and work on, and that it doesn't bother me, but at the same time, it's hard to be optimistic within a systematical problem as sexism.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the sexism towards women.
Yeah.
Caused by unpleasured men.
Yeah. It's like deep rooted in our society. It's really deep.
Yeah, it's just it's rooted in their behavior that I'm not the predator, and then they turn out to be that, because what do I know? I'm really thankful I haven't been sexually abused by someone when I was younger, like by an older man. I mean, I have been raped, so I know exactly how it feels to, like, stand in the shower trying to wash off all that pain, the blame, the shame, you feel, you know, especially by someone you know, and feeling really, really vulnerable and also powerless. Like, I couldn't do shit. He was double my size, double my height, everything. That just shows how men, without knowing it, probably knowing it, unconsciously using their physical strength to pleasure themselves with someone who doesn't even have a saying in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a systematical problem. But you know, I've worked through it. Like, we've even talked. It's good now, and like, I've healed as much as I can.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, obviously, but it's like, I was 19 and he was 27. It's still an age gap. I think I've just become and I never reported it, which is also because his little sister was my best friend, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you need to report, you need to tell people. I didn't tell anyone that it was a rape until 2 years after. Like, I didn't. And I even got pregnant. That's the worst part. Yeah. So, with saying that, it's just really important to just, like, and also contraception, God, you know.
Oh yeah.
Just give it to the men. There are too many side effects, man. At the end of the day, I learned so much, and it put me in a really good place. I mean, I'm here now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in the UK. I you know, like, I think it's just really important to, like, educate younger people.
Yeah.
So there are no room for discrimination or discriminating behaviors.
Yeah.
You know?
Room for this.
Or even start, like, I don't even want the snowball to start. I don't even want it to be able to. I don't even want them to be able to build it in their heads.
No foundation.
Exactly. Just lay the foundation of, this is how you treat another human being. Not only boys are boys or girls will be girls.
I hate that. Boys will be boys. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's absolute. You know, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna cross my thumbs or just, like, hope for it, because we are the change.
Yeah.
Like, the change won't happen if we don't act on it.
Feel thankful to all those women, like just people. It doesn't even have to be women and men that talk about their experiences, because we'll never know that something's going on until it's come to light. And especially with Me Too, it helped so many people come forward about their experiences, and that's all you can ask for and stuff like this, is to just educate people. And it doesn't matter if people are uncomfortable.
Exactly.
The whole purpose is to make people uncomfortable, because then you start to realize, okay, this is something deeper in our society that we don't talk about. It's on the down low, when we should.
Yeah.
These are people's feelings and experiences in life, and yes, this should never have happened and they should never have been put through that. But the fact that they can take that such a negative experience and make it positive for other people and help uplift other people, it's like, it's great.
That's definitely no. I agree with everything you say, and it's just I must say you have a very, very objective viewpoint, like from asking your questions, which I appreciate, because I also have another friend in photography,
Mhm.
and he interviews and take portraits like with the Hasselblad, which is like a really old camera. And he interviews people, and he has interviewed everyone who is extreme, like right politically, like they're like rightist, what do you call it, like really, like they're almost Nazi, like fascist, to people who are, grew up in Christiania in Denmark with like drugs and everything, to a witch in the to the like, New Forest Coven, like Wicca. And I just admire the work you dare to do, like, because I bet you will probably have a bit of like uncomfortable discussions and situations with people who may not agree with you, or you may not agree with them. And it takes a lot to be professional in this format. So like, keep going, go ahead. And I mean, we obviously.
Well, thank you for like explaining your journey and like handball and like talking about inclusivity with me. It was really insightful. Obviously, I've learned a bit more about you, and I've also learned a bit more about handball and like the type of environment you are put under. Like before this, I did not know about handball, but now I'm educated. And
Yeah.
the environment is changing. The sports environment is changing. It's becoming more inclusive. Thank you for listening to the full podcast, and be sure to check out Sai's social media platforms. Don't forget to watch out for the new episode of Sai's Inclusion is What Matters Most next week.